Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something that might rattle your spirit. You were not born broken, but if you stay the same, you might just die that way. See, we live in a world full of distractions, social media, fear, laziness, excuses. And while you're busy blaming your parents, your past, or the economy, time is moving like a freight train with no brakes. And if you don't hear anything else I say today, hear this. You don't have time to waste becoming who you already were designed to be. This is not about fixing the world. This is about fixing you. Because when you get right, your world gets right. Your money, your relationships, your purpose, your peace. All of it starts with one decision. Fix yourself before it's too late. You are not a victim of your circumstances. You are a product of your decisions. That might be hard to hear, but it is the truth that separates the successful from the stagnant. People can come from the same background, the same city, the same school, and the same struggle, but the ones who rise are the ones who take responsibility for their lives. Personal responsibility is not a suggestion. It is a requirement for transformation. You can't blame your parents forever. You can't blame your childhood, your boss, your partner, or your environment for where you are right now. Yes, those things may have influenced your life, but they do not control your future unless you allow them to. At some point, you must take the wheel and drive. Stop handing your power to people who aren't even thinking about you anymore. Every time you shift blame, you give away a piece of your authority. You give away a piece of your potential. You give away a piece of your progress. The moment you stop blaming is the moment you start building. Taking ownership of your life doesn't mean everything is your fault, but it does mean everything is your responsibility. There's a difference, and that difference determines whether you grow or stay stuck. When you take personal responsibility, you stop waiting and start working. You stop complaining and start creating. You stop looking at what you lack and start using what you have. You begin to realize that everything you need to move forward is already inside you. It just needs activation. That activation only comes through responsibility. It is easy to stay angry at what happened to you. It is easy to rehearse the betrayal, the abandonment, the injustice. But none of those things change your current situation. You could be justified in your pain and still broke. You could be absolutely right about how unfair life has been and still be unfulfilled. Responsibility doesn't ask if it was fair. It asks, what are you going to do now? The power of responsibility is that it shifts your focus from what you can't control to what you can. You can control your attitude, you can control your work ethic, you can control your character, you can control your response. You may not be able to control what happened, but you are fully responsible for what happens next. People love to say, God's got a plan for me. That's true, but you have a part to play. God's plan requires your participation. If you won't move your feet, don't expect doors to open. Faith is not a passive force, it's an active one. Responsibility is not the opposite of faith, it's the evidence of it. When you truly believe in what's possible for your life, you take action to align with it. You cannot pray for breakthrough and prepare for breakdown. You cannot ask for favor while feeding fear. Personal responsibility demands alignment. Your actions, thoughts, and words must line up with the results you want. It's not about perfection. It's about consistency. Progress only responds to movement. There is no elevation without examination. That means you got to be honest with yourself. No more sugarcoating, no more denial. Look at your habits, look at your choices, look at your mindset. Ask yourself, am I helping myself or hurting myself? Personal responsibility starts with self-awareness and it grows through self-discipline. Responsibility means waking up early even when you don't feel like it. It means reading instead of scrolling. It means investing in growth instead of wasting time on gossip and games. It means doing what's right when no one is watching. It's in those quiet decisions, those daily disciplines, that your future is being written. Nobody is going to chase you down and make you change. You have to want it bad enough to do something about it. You have to want growth more than comfort. You have to want purpose more than pleasure. You have to want your destiny more than your distractions. Until that shift happens in your spirit, you keep going in circles. The longer you avoid responsibility, the longer you delay your breakthrough. You keep saying, I'm waiting on the right time. The right time is now. There is no magic moment. There is no perfect day. There's only a decision to take charge of your life today with what you have, where you are. Everything else is an excuse dressed in procrastination. People will come and go. Opportunities will come and go. Even motivation will come and go. But responsibility must remain. It is the anchor that holds your future in place. It is the foundation upon which every dream is built. You will not rise higher than your willingness to be accountable for your actions. You cannot build a powerful life on a foundation of blame. You cannot construct legacy while pointing fingers. Blame is a prison that feels like protection. It's a wall you build to keep others out, but it also keeps your destiny in. Tear it down. Replace it with discipline, replace it with purpose, replace it with truth. There is a version of you that is focused, faithful, and free. But that version is waiting behind the doors of responsibility. You cannot meet that version while living in avoidance. You must confront the areas you've ignored, the weaknesses you've excused, the cycles you've normalized. You were born to lead, to create, to impact. But leadership starts with self-leadership. You cannot guide others if you can't govern yourself. You cannot ask people to follow a life you're not even fully living. You must first take responsibility for your own alignment before asking others to align with you. The road to freedom is paved with ownership. It's the hard truth that creates lasting transformation. No more blame, no more victimhood, just the raw, unfiltered decision to take responsibility and move forward day by day, choice by choice, moment by moment. Responsibility doesn't always feel good, but it always produces good. It doesn't always look glamorous, but it always leads to glory. It's not a punishment, it's a privilege. The privilege to direct the course of your own life instead of being dragged by it. You cannot rise while still clinging to what's holding you down. That's the hard truth many people ignore. Everyone wants elevation, but few are willing to deal with elimination. You can't bring old habits into a new season and expect different results. You can't carry baggage from the past and expect to run freely into your future. What you refuse to let go of will eventually become what stops you. Elevation is not just about what you gain, it's about what you give up. It's about surrendering the things that feel good but produce nothing. It's about walking away from comfort zones that are quietly killing your potential. You can't expect God to promote you while you keep protecting what He's trying to remove. There are people, patterns, and mindsets that served a version of you that no longer exists. They were part of your survival, not your success. And when you grow, you outgrow. But if you stay emotionally tied to things that no longer align with your purpose, you'll find yourself stagnant, wondering why nothing is changing. Letting go is not just about detaching from people. It's about releasing attitudes and behaviors that don't serve your destiny. Pride, insecurity, procrastination, bitterness, fear, comparison. These are internal weights. You may look good on the outside, but if your spirit is heavy, your progress will be slow. You cannot take toxic thinking into a place of peace. You cannot expect financial abundance while maintaining a poverty mindset. You cannot expect healthy relationships while clinging to past betrayal as your identity. Elimination is the pruning process that prepares you for fruitfulness. Without it, you may grow, but you will not thrive. Some of the things you need to eliminate aren't evil. They're just not useful anymore. They're distractions, time wasters, energy drainers. And even though they feel familiar, they're costing you progress. Comfort is often the enemy of calling, and what you tolerate will eventually become what you replicate. Growth requires sacrifice. You will never elevate without discomfort. Sometimes it means turning down the party. Sometimes it means silencing the noise. Sometimes it means cutting off conversations that feed your doubt instead of your destiny. Elevation is lonely because everyone can go where people say they want change, but few are willing to pay the price. You can't become who you're meant to be while still playing games with who you used to be. Old thinking can't solve new problems. Old habits can't carry new blessings. If you really want transformation, you have to get serious about what must go. Elimination requires honesty. You have to stop lying to yourself about what's not that bad. You know the habits that are robbing you. You know the places that trigger your weakness. You know the voices that cause you to question your worth. But as long as you justify keeping them, you disqualify yourself from more. There are some doors you've been praying for that God can't open, not because you're not called, but because you're still cluttered. Clutter creates confusion. It creates delay. You have to make space for what you've been asking for. And space only comes through subtraction. It's not enough to want better. You have to prepare for better. That preparation starts with elimination, cleaning out the mental clutter, releasing the spiritual residue, detaching from emotional addictions. There's no elevation without discipline, and there's no discipline without decisions that hurt at first but heal in the end. What you refuse to eliminate becomes what you eventually tolerate, and what you tolerate becomes your limitation. You can't keep pretending that unhealed wounds won't bleed on your future. You can't keep pretending that laziness is just resting. You can't keep pretending that your friends are harmless when they feed your dysfunction. When you let go, you make room. Room for growth, room for clarity, room for strength. But you can't hold on to dead things and expect life to flourish. Elimination isn't loss, it's alignment. It's the recognition that anything not helping you is hurting you, whether it feels like it or not. Some of you are fighting battles God never told you to fight. You're tied to people He already told you to release. You're building around habits He's trying to break. And the frustration you feel isn't from failure, it's from disobedience. You refuse to let go, so you're stuck. Elevation requires obedience to separation. You have to train your spirit to value purpose over preference. Preference says this feels good. Purpose says this is good for me. Preference says this is easy. Purpose says this is necessary. The elevation of your life will always be tied to the sacrifices you're willing to make. If you're serious about change, the proof is in what you're willing to cut. Talk is cheap. Vision is cheap. Everyone can say they want more, but very few are willing to walk away from the distractions, the comforts, and the cycles that are keeping them in place. Elevation doesn't happen by accident. It's a deliberate decision to remove anything that competes with your calling. Some relationships will end. Some routines will die. Some environments will shift. That's the price. And though it may hurt, it is holy. It is the cutting away of what once fit you but now limits you. It is the divine discomfort that precedes breakthrough. Elimination is not punishment, it's preparation. The version of you that you keep dreaming about, the strong you, the disciplined you, the focused you, already exists. But that version is buried beneath layers of comfort, compromise, and excuses. To reach that version, you must go through the process of elimination. What you keep will either raise you or ruin you. The choice is always yours. You were not placed on this earth by accident. You are not the result of random events or cosmic luck. You were intentionally designed, deliberately crafted, and divinely positioned. There is power in your presence, and there is purpose in your existence. Every breath you take is proof that you still have something to accomplish, something to build, something to shift in this world. You were born with power, not the kind the world gives and takes away, but the kind that flows from your identity. This power is not about domination, it's about transformation. It's the power to speak life, to overcome adversity, to create where there is nothing, and to rise no matter how many times you fall. That power is embedded in your spirit. It's not learned, it's unlocked. You don't need to search for your worth. You don't need to earn your value. You were born valuable. You were born with divine fingerprints all over your destiny. Before you ever took a step, your path was laced with purpose. Before anyone gave you a title, you already had a mission. The challenge is not discovering if you were created for something great. It's believing that you are. Too many people walk through life disconnected from their power, not because it doesn't exist, but because they've never activated it. Life has a way of covering your purpose with layers of trauma, rejection, fear, and doubt. But your purpose doesn't disappear, it gets buried. And your job is to dig it back up. You don't need to find yourself, you need to remember who you were before life convinced you to forget. The world will always try to define you by your mistakes, your past, or your pain. But purpose is not determined by circumstances. Purpose is rooted in design. The fact that you are here right now with your unique voice, your story, your gifts, and your vision is evidence that your life carries meaning beyond what you've been through. Power doesn't mean you'll never feel weak. It means you refuse to stay weak. It means there's something in you that rises when everything around you tells you to quit. That rising, that resilience, that fire, that's your power. You can be tired and still chosen. You can be wounded and still called. You can be broken and still have breakthrough in your DNA. Your purpose is not small, it's not average, it's not safe, it is disruptive. It's meant to shake the foundations of fear and bring light to dark places. Your purpose will always pull you into a life that requires faith because it is bigger than your comfort zone, it is greater than your logic, it is higher than your understanding, and it is always worth the price. You were created with specific gifts, gifts that solve problems, bring healing, speak truth, build people, create wealth, and shift atmospheres. These gifts are not random. They are assignments. They are tools placed in your hand by the one who knew what this world would need from you. And when you refuse to use them, you don't just rob yourself. You rob the people who were waiting for what you carry. Purpose doesn't mean every day will be easy. It doesn't mean you'll have all the answers. But it does mean you'll have all you need. What's in you is greater than what's around you. And when you lean into that truth, you stop seeking validation and start walking in vision. You stop waiting for permission and start making moves with conviction. Every challenge you faced was not meant to break you, but to build you. Your pain has a purpose. Your scars have stories. Your setbacks were setups. Every detour, every delay, every disappointment, it was all preparation. Nothing is wasted when you're walking in purpose. Even your lowest moments become the foundation for your highest calling. You don't have to be perfect to walk in purpose. You just have to be willing. Willing to grow, willing to learn, willing to believe, willing to keep moving even when you feel unqualified. Power is not about having it all together. It's about showing up with what you have, trusting that it's enough to take the next step. Is something inside you that hell has tried to silence, something that fear has tried to bury, something that failure has tried to shame. But if you're still breathing, then your power still works. Your purpose is still active. And no matter how much time has passed or how far you've strayed, you can still return to what you were created to be. You were not created to just survive. You were created to reign. Not to live on autopilot, but to live with authority. You were meant to influence, to build legacy, to shift atmospheres with your words, your work, your presence. The world is not complete without your contribution. You are a piece of the puzzle that can't be replaced. Too often we compare ourselves to others and miss the uniqueness of our own assignment. But purpose is not a competition, it's a commission. You are commissioned to carry something no one else can carry in the way you carry it. Your life is an answer to a specific problem in the earth. That's why you matter. That's why you can't give up. When you understand your power and your purpose, you stop chasing clout and start chasing clarity. You stop begging for opportunities and start creating them. You stop shrinking for people's comfort and start standing in your full stature, not in arrogance, but in assignment. You were meant to take up space. Everything around you may try to convince you to settle, to play it safe, to shrink your voice, to stay small. But the purpose inside you will never be satisfied with mediocrity. There's a divine discomfort that shows up every time you live beneath your calling. That discomfort is not the enemy, it's the invitation to rise. When you walk in power, you disrupt patterns, you break cycles, you confront what others are afraid to face. And when you live in purpose, you don't need a platform, you are the platform. Your life becomes the message. Your consistency becomes the sermon. Your fruit becomes the proof. You were created with both power and purpose, not one or the other, but both. That means you have the authority to move and the assignment to fulfill. You have the strength to endure and the reason to keep going. You are not empty. You are not lost. You are not random. You were created with intentionality, infused with divine potential and positioned for impact. Time is the one resource you can't get back. You can lose money and make it again. You can lose friends and build new relationships. You can lose opportunities and find more down the road. But when time moves, it doesn't turn around. It doesn't pause for reflection. It doesn't wait for your emotions to settle or for your confidence to catch up. Time keeps moving with or without your participation. You can't negotiate with time. You can't plead for it to slow down while you figure things out. Time is neutral. It doesn't care whether you use it or waste it. It simply does what it's designed to do, move forward. And every second you spend doubting yourself, procrastinating, or playing small is a second you'll never recover. There's someone out there getting results with less talent, fewer resources, and more obstacles than you, simply because they decided to move. They didn't wait to feel ready. They didn't wait for validation. They didn't wait for fear to disappear. They made a decision to act in spite of it all because they understood that waiting too long is a silent killer of purpose. Time does not owe you understanding. It does not owe you another chance. What you have right now, this moment, is all you're guaranteed. The myth of someday is what traps most people in cycles of delay. Someday is not on the calendar. Someday doesn't exist. What exists is now. What exists is the choice you make today. You don't have forever to become who you were created to be. You don't have forever to start that business, write that book, build that vision, or repair that relationship. The window of opportunity is not always open. Seasons shift, doors close, people change, and if you're not moving with the time, you're slowly becoming irrelevant to your own destiny. The pain of discipline weighs ounces, but the pain of regret weighs tons. It's easy to put things off when the consequences are invisible. But over time, small delays turn into missed years. And one day, you'll look back and realize the cost of waiting was greater than the cost of acting in the midst of uncertainty. Time is a mirror. It reflects your priorities, your focus, and your effort. It doesn't lie. If you say something matters to you, but you never give it time, it doesn't matter as much as you claim. You show what you value by how you spend your hours. What gets your time gets your life. Time is not just minutes, it's evidence of direction. The danger is thinking you have more time than you do. The lie is believing there's always tomorrow. But tomorrow is not promised. All you have is right now. And if you keep waiting for the stars to align, you'll miss the fact that the sky has already cleared, and the only thing missing is your movement. Every excuse you make buys more time for mediocrity. Every delay you justify gives fear more room to grow. You may think you're preserving yourself, but really you're postponing your purpose. The longer you hesitate, the harder it becomes to move. Inertia sets in. Comfort becomes your cage, and slowly, without realizing it, you start settling for a life that's smaller than the one you were called to live. You have to ask yourself, what are you waiting for? Are you waiting for someone to give you permission? Are you waiting to feel worthy? Are you waiting for the fear to leave? Because none of that may ever happen. And while you wait, time moves. It doesn't consult you. It doesn't slow down because you're nervous. It just keeps going. Momentum is not built by intention, it's built by motion. You can't think your way into progress. You can't wish your way into legacy. At some point, you have to move your feet. At some point, you have to take that first uncomfortable, unglamorous, unsteady step forward, and then keep stepping, no matter how imperfect the path may seem. You were not created to live on pause. You were not created to drift through days with no direction. Every second you're alive is a divine investment. You are spending time with every breath. And the only question is, what are you buying with it? Are you building a life of purpose or a life of excuses? Are you investing in progress or in delay? Look around and you'll see how fast things change. People come and go, trends shift, opportunities vanish. If you don't act, someone else will. If you don't build, someone else will. If you don't speak, someone else will. And the idea that was meant for you will be fulfilled by someone who is simply bold enough to use their time differently. Time exposes the difference between potential and results. Everyone has potential, but only the discipline turn it into reality. Talent is wasted without action. Dreams are meaningless without execution. Vision is powerless without a schedule. If your goals are not in your calendar, they are just fantasies. There's a clock tied to your purpose. You don't know the hour, but it's ticking. Every moment matters, not in fear, but in urgency, not in panic, but in awareness. You were not given time to waste. You were given time to create, to lead, to impact, to grow, to pour out what was placed in you before you were born. Procrastination feels safe because it removes the pressure of responsibility for now, but it increases the pressure of regret later. It delays growth, peace, and fulfillment. It keeps you busy doing things that don't matter, while the things that truly matter sit untouched in the background of your life. When you finally decide to take action, you'll realize the mountain wasn't as high as it looked. Most of the time, what holds us back isn't the challenge, it's our hesitation. It's the mental debate that wastes days, weeks, even years. If you stop thinking and start doing, you'll tap into a flow that only reveals itself through action. Time is moving. It doesn't pause to let you decide. It doesn't rewind so you can redo. Every tick is a reminder that your moment is now. Not tomorrow, not next week, now. Because while you're hesitating, life is happening. And the only way to catch up is to move forward, no matter how imperfect your steps may feel. Discipline is not exciting, it's not glamorous, it rarely feels good in the moment, but it is the deciding factor between the person who talks about purpose and the person who actually fulfills it. Many are called, but few are consistent enough to walk that calling into reality. Discipline is what separates potential from performance, dreams from results, calling from completion. Everyone has a calling, that unique pull in the soul that whispers, there's more for you. It's the vision, the idea, the assignment buried in your heart that refuses to die, no matter how many times life tries to bury it. But a calling is not enough. Being called gives you a direction, but discipline gives you movement. Discipline takes the invisible and makes it tangible. Discipline shows up when motivation doesn't. Discipline says, I'll do it anyway. It doesn't need to feel right, look right, or be convenient. It simply honors the mission. It shows up early, stays late, repeats the basics, and doesn't get distracted by the highs or the lows. It doesn't chase feelings, it chases faithfulness. Discipline is obedience in motion. There are people with more talent than you, more connections than you, more knowledge than you, but if they lack discipline, they won't outlast you. Because talent may get you in the room, but discipline keeps you there. It's what builds your reputation. It's what sharpens your character. It's what gives weight to your words and integrity to your actions. Your calling may be grand, it may be global, but if you can't master the small daily disciplines, waking up early, managing your thoughts, protecting your focus, honoring your time, then you'll sabotage the very thing you were born to build. Discipline is the construction crew of destiny. Without it, your calling stays a blueprint with no foundation. We love the idea of purpose, but we struggle with the process. Discipline is the process. It is the grind between inspiration and manifestation. It's where you make hard decisions in private so you can carry power in public. It's where you train your mind to obey even when your feelings protest. It's where your habits get stronger than your excuses. People don't fail because they're not called. They fail because they quit too soon. They let distractions lead. They let comfort win. They let pressure silence progress. But discipline keeps going. It doesn't fold under pressure. It functions in it. It turns pain into fuel and failure into feedback. It learns, adapts, and advances. You won't always see instant results. Discipline is not a sprint. It's a marathon of unseen faithfulness. It's building when no one is watching, praying when no one claps, working when no one celebrates. It's becoming someone in the dark so that when the spotlight comes, your character doesn't collapse. Discipline prepares you for what you've been asking for. Your calling won't fulfill itself. Vision doesn't execute itself. Dreams don't wake up and walk. That's your job. And without discipline, the calling becomes a burden instead of a blessing. Because you'll know what you're supposed to do, but won't have the consistency to sustain it. That's torment. That's frustration. That's purpose wasted. Discipline brings structure to your spirit. It brings rhythm to your routine. It gives your goals a home. It gives your decisions a direction. Without it, you'll drift. You'll wake up reacting to life instead of creating it. You'll be busy but not productive, moving but not progressing. You'll live in cycles instead of walking in purpose. The enemy of purpose is not always sin, it's often sloppiness. It's lack of order, lack of planning, lack of follow through. Discipline brings divine order into your life. It prioritizes what matters. It cuts what doesn't. It creates boundaries. It builds momentum. And it protects the mission from being derailed by emotion. Some people are waiting for a breakthrough when what they really need is a schedule. They're praying for opportunities, but wasting the time they already have. Discipline turns time into treasure. It multiplies your effectiveness. It compounds your effort. Over time, what started as small, consistent choices becomes a lifestyle of excellence. If you want to see fulfillment, you have to commit to discipline. Not for a week, not until it gets hard, but until your habits become your new nature. You don't rise to the level of your calling, you fall to the level of your training. And if you haven't trained your mind to stay focused, your body to stay consistent, and your spirit to stay anchored, you'll keep starting over. Discipline is where desire turns into decisions. It's where you stop dreaming and start doing. It's where you stop planning and start producing. It doesn't ask how you feel, it reminds you who you are. It's the bridge that carries you from the idea to the impact, from the intention to the outcome, from the prophecy to the promise. Your calling is sacred. It's not just about you, it's about the lives tied to your obedience. And discipline is how you steward that responsibility. It's how you protect what's been entrusted to you. It's how you multiply what's in your hand so you can serve more, lead better, and finish strong. Every time you choose discipline, you're telling your future that it matters. You're honoring the version of you that you haven't met yet, the one who's stronger, wiser, and more effective. Discipline is not punishment. It's alignment. It's the tool God uses to refine you, prepare you, and position you. There will be days when you want to quit. Days when it feels pointless. Days when you question if it's worth it. But those are the days that define you. Because discipline doesn't quit when it's tired. It rests, then resumes. It doesn't run from the work, it runs toward it with purpose. Because it knows that on the other side of discipline is fulfillment. And that's a bridge worth building. Transformation never happens in denial. You cannot change what you refuse to confront. You cannot rise above what you continue to ignore. There comes a moment in every person's life when breakthrough is only possible through brutal honesty. Not the kind of honesty that makes you feel good, but the kind that shakes you awake and forces you to face the gap between where you are and where you're called to be. Confrontation is not about blaming others. It's about taking inventory. It's about looking in the mirror and admitting what's really there. The habits, the patterns, the fears, the inconsistencies, the compromises you've tolerated for far too long. Until you face it, you will continue to be bound by it. You will continue to circle the same cycles and wonder why your life isn't changing. We spend too much energy covering up the mess instead of cleaning it up. We'd rather curate a life that looks good than confront the areas that are actually broken. But real change doesn't start with aesthetics, it starts with awareness. If you're not willing to sit with the truth about your current state, you are not ready to step into your future. Avoidance is a thief. It robs you of growth. It keeps you stuck in patterns that feel familiar but produce nothing. As long as you're avoiding the real issue, you'll misdiagnose your struggles. You'll treat symptoms and ignore the root. You'll change jobs, change partners, change scenery without ever changing you. Because the problem wasn't where you were, it was what you were unwilling to confront within yourself. Confrontation requires courage. It takes boldness to admit that your own decisions have contributed to your delay. It's easier to blame life, blame people, blame the system, but it takes maturity to say, I allowed this. I ignored that. I should have acted sooner. Growth starts where excuses end. Until then, you'll confuse motion with progress and never gain real traction. You cannot heal what you pretend isn't broken. You cannot conquer what you won't admit has control. The first step to freedom is exposure, not for the world's approval, but for your own accountability. You have to be willing to say, this isn't working, this version of me is not sustainable, I need a shift. And the shift won't come through inspiration alone, it will come through confrontation. Transformation demands that you challenge the lies you've believed about yourself. Lies like, this is just how I am, I'll never be more than this, change is too hard. These are not truths, they're cages. And as long as you let them live in your mind unchallenged, they will control your behavior. You can't have a new life with the same old mindset. Something has to be confronted. Sometimes what needs to be confronted isn't just internal, it's environmental. the people you've surrounded yourself with, the atmosphere you tolerate, the influences you consume. Your environment is either reinforcing your growth or enabling your stagnation. You have to ask yourself, does this atmosphere support my transformation, or is it holding me hostage? Confrontation is not about shame, it's about clarity. It's not saying you're a failure, it's saying you've located where the issue is so you can finally deal with it. You can't repent for what you won't acknowledge. You can't rebuild what you won't admit is broken. You can't renew your mind while defending the dysfunction that's destroying you. There is a version of you that you've only seen in glimpses, a stronger, wiser, more focused, more powerful version, but you can't access that version through convenience. You get there through conflict, through wrestling with your own resistance, through doing the hard internal work that most people avoid. That's the price of transformation. Every major change in your life will be preceded by a confrontation. It might be a conversation you don't want to have, a decision you've delayed making, a truth you've been avoiding, but until you face it, you can't fix it. And what you tolerate will eventually dominate, whether it's fear, insecurity, laziness, pride, or unforgiveness. It will run your life until you stand up to it. Confrontation brings clarity. It strips away illusions. It reveals motives. It shows you where your energy has been leaking and why your results have been limited. It's not about tearing yourself down. It's about breaking open the shell so that the real you can emerge. Because you were never designed to live small. But growth requires shedding what no longer serves you. Sometimes the confrontation is with your past. You can't keep running from what hurts you and expect to heal. You have to turn around, face it, and extract the lesson. The memory may still sting, but the power of the pain fades when you confront it with truth. When you stop letting the past define you and start using it to refine you, you take your power back. Sometimes the confrontation is with your future. You've seen what you're capable of, but you've been playing it safe, and your future is calling you higher, demanding more. Not because you're not enough, but because there's more in you than you've accessed. Comfort will try to seduce you, but calling will confront you. It won't let you rest until you rise. Sometimes the confrontation is spiritual. It's not just about mindset, it's about alignment. You've been trying to live a purpose-driven life on autopilot. But true transformation starts when you confront the idols you've built, the compromises you've made, and the authority you've handed over to things that were never meant to lead you. This level of change requires divine confrontation. There's a version of confrontation that doesn't feel like war. It feels like surrender. Not surrender to defeat, but surrender to truth. A moment where you stop fighting the process and finally agree with the version of you that's been trying to break through. You lay down the excuses, the pride, the fear, and you make room for something greater to be born. You don't become transformed by avoiding conflict. You become transformed by facing it head on and letting it shape you into someone with deeper integrity, greater wisdom, and unshakable focus. Confrontation carves character. It deepens your capacity. It makes your why stronger than your why not. Without it, change will always remain theoretical. It's not your talent that will change your life. It's not your dreams or your desires. It's your willingness to confront what needs to be changed, challenged, and corrected. Transformation is not a feeling. It's a decision. It's a choice to step into discomfort and stay there long enough for something new to be formed. Because what you're becoming is worth the fight.